So, let me ask you one question. When was the last time you went somewhere with no information about your destination? Did you regret that trip? Yeah, me too. How's it? It's Kay here. You're watching Mix and Mingle. You know what? This is actually my first time making and uploading my content creation, so I have absolutely, oh my god, no idea how to start this. Oh my goodness, this sounds still super weird coming out of my mouth, but I'm finally being a YouTuber. So if you want to say anything about this post, or if you don't agree with anything I said, please feel free to leave a comment or messages. Remember, there are no topics or off limits, so just don't hesitate to put anything on your mind. I'm supposed to find them incredibly helpful. Before jumping straight into it, I think I have to introduce myself formally to you guys. Hi, my name is Kei, and I'm a senior year student in college in Japan. My undergrad coursework focuses on English education, but I took 1 year off to study abroad in Vancouver, Canada, and I studied business management there. Aside from college work, I've had 3 working experiences as an intern, like working at a startups company in Vancouver, which I found incredibly rewarding, but also very, very, very stressful. For sure, I'm gonna have to tell you why I chose to live in Vancouver anyway. I was actually born and raised in the countryside of Japan, so having grown up in the middle of nowhere in Japan, not so many English had been spoken to me up until I went to college, or even up until I went outside of Japan. So ever since I was young, it's been a huge dream of mine to live in, especially to live in somewhere where English is spoken. And also I've heard lots of friends of mine who actually went there and having fun say that people in Vancouver are very open-minded and they are very helpful. So I couldn't resist the, allure of exploring that for myself. So that's why I chose to live in Vancouver. And then I got, applied to college and got right in. So I spent 1 year in Vancouver. But over the past few years, I've actually had a chance to go studying abroad for a few years, but it wouldn't work out in every single time for some reasons, like whether it's COVID related or just simply recession related or simply just something I couldn't afford to. So basically, it had tons of hurdles to overcome. But I'm really glad that I stuck with it because I achieved tons of things when I was living in Vancouver. So let me explain why I want to make this video so much. Because I know for a fact that there is so many people who ever thought about, branching out of their comfort zones. Maybe like taking working holiday visas to live, or just simply going studying abroad for a few years, or just simply visiting regularly outside of Japan, right? There is so much reasons to go outside of Japan, right? But if you like to move anywhere new, you'll most likely be a few things you wish you had known before taking the leap. So today, what I'm going to be doing for you guys is to share my opinions of how I really felt when I was living in Vancouver. Especially for 5 things I wish I had known before starting a new life in Vancouver. Fair warning, this is just my 2 cents worth. I'm just sharing my observations right here, so if you don't agree with anything I said, please feel free to leave a comment or messages. Remember, like I said, there are no topics or off limits, so just share anything on your mind. One of the things that struck my mind when I'm thinking about a life of Vancouver is that weather issues. Believe it or not, prior to living in Vancouver or even coming as a visitor, one of the biggest things that I heard was that it rains 24/7 and never stops out there. Like a lot of friends of mine and like a lot of YouTubers say like how awful it is to live in, especially from November until February, because it's constantly raining like cats and dogs out there. And it's true that it's constantly raining, especially from November until February. It's the rainy seasons. But living there from November until February is not really bad thing as people make it out to be. I think it's just blown out of proportion for a bit. Because the temperatures there are never going crazy as far as I can remember. It can be relatively cold and wet, but March through October is why you live there. Because picture this, sunshine, beautiful weather, ranging from 15 to 20 degrees Celsius most days, and it's scenery that gets better and better as the season goes on. It can be beaten anywhere else in Japan, I guaranteed. More shockingly though, I'm not really sure why, but no one I've ever met in Vancouver had dropped their umbrella. And believe me, you guys have to make sure you bring your own umbrella, because umbrellas in Vancouver are not durable enough. It breaks too easily. Number 2, save as much money as you can. Let's face it, Vancouver is the most expensive city in Canada, especially when it comes to rent. And even right now, the cost of living is skyrocketing. I happen to be really lucky because when I shared apartment with my friends, like roommates, it costed me like $800 for each per month. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere, but definitely worth saving up. But now that I can see the same apartment that I used to rent, it's gonna cost you around like $1,500 for each per month. $1,500 for each per month. Would you believe it? Also, more shockingly, the average lunch meals cost you more than like $20 to $25 for each, but the average dinner meals cost you more than $80 for just table for two. $80 for just table for two. There's a lot of money, right? So you guys have to budget carefully and look for ways to save definitely. Number 3, don't lose yourself. Allow me to clarify, making a friend in Vancouver can be extremely tough for international students for lots of reasons, whether it's language barriers, cultural differences, or even like the cost of living issues. Because you know what? A friend of mine from Japan who recently moved to Vancouver, he actually pointed this out to me. He said it can be like actually quite hard to make some few friends like outside work or school, and living there alone can be tough because of that. Since rent and expenses are so high there, around like 80% or more like 90% of people who live in Vancouver do not live alone. Which goes to show you, they already have roommates or friends they're with, making them less likely to be on search for a few friends all the time. And I'm asking myself, like, how would you find your friends to live, right? It's so difficult. I think it's just impossible. On top of all that, it seems like Canadians like to kind of stick to, social circles, and it's so hard to break into. But you mustn't lose sight of who you are. You've got this, because there is tons of Asians and there's tons of Japanese people out there. You eventually find a few friends who really appreciate for who you are. You've got this, because you know why? Because even a dummy like me and the introverted like me could manage to get some few friends. You've got this, really. Number 4, homelessness in Vancouver. Another thing I found to be really intimidating is that they have a pretty high homelessness and drug addiction rate. It's crystal clear that you can see sometimes people living in tents, like right on sidewalks in downtown Vancouver. And you know what? Even in Gastown, where I used to go through to get to college, which is actually one of the most popular tourist destinations, because this is where the city got its start. This is where you really start to see, like a lot of activities and a lot of like shopping centers to buy something. But even if you're in Gastown, I think you realize that it's kind of, looks quite a bit dirty at times. But if you go farther east, there's a place called East Hastings, and this has always been known as a place where those people hang out. And unfortunately, it's gotten significantly worse, because I've seen lots of videos of people having really hard time getting inside their house because of the tents there. And you know what? For the most part, I feel really bad for them, but there's nothing I can do, right? There's nothing we can do, because I'm nothing more than a student, and I'm such a powerless person. And also, like, I know for a fact that in the most part they're not dangerous enough, but it's not something you really want to see, right? I don't want to be dramatic, but these are real issues in Vancouver. Number 5, not everyone is nice enough. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying people in Vancouver are rude or anything in general. I'm just saying not everyone is nice enough. And of course, for the most part, like for almost all of them are super nice individuals, and they're very friendly. Also, like, I know that the customer service levels in Vancouver are top notch. I really appreciate them. And there's tons of people who are great individuals, but some people can be pretty annoying after all. And yeah, I think that applies to any countries, right? For me, in which I feel like I experienced something bad things, and I'm gonna tell you what I experienced when I was working at a startup company in Vancouver. I met incredibly smart and very strict boss at one of the sales company in Vancouver, and then I often got that from her, like, being said, you need to go where you came from, or I can be more comfortable with someone who speaks a little bit better English than you, or just because you're Japanese, you're not able to speak English, aren't you? Or something like that. I'm sure not so many people can relate to this idea, that it feels like there's a voice in my head. Like, a god of mine keeps telling me, like, everything I'm currently doing is worthless. Like every time I messed up at work, the first thing that came to my mind was I was gonna disappoint my boss. And you know what? Even though I knew no one's paying attention to it except my boss, I felt really criticized on myself like all the time. You know what? Now I guess I just upset, to her. You guys might be thinking that everybody in that office except me, is fine working with her well, but those are completely different situations with completely different factors, right? I guess what I'm saying is, if you have anybody who spread negativity around you, just walk away from them. Not to let anyone dictate your behavior, and no one else will be treated that way, regardless of how well you can speak English or no matter what your background is. That's super unfair. Or you can just report to somebody else. For me, I didn't have enough courage to do it, so I guess this is something I really regret of myself in my entire life. Number 6. Is living in Vancouver worth it after all? I guess the question that I ask myself on a daily basis, and something I still think about today, is Vancouver is an incredible place to live or incredible place to visit regularly, or just simply a place to avoid. And let me tell you, if you're considering living in Vancouver, I'm sure it'll definitely be worthwhile. But for the record, I don't believe the idea that there's a perfect place to live in. There's so many pros and cons to any places you might be living in, right? For me, in which I feel like tipping culture in North America is very unfamiliar with me, to be honest. In Japan, tipping is not super common and can even be seen as rude, as good service is expected and included in the price. However, on the contrary, in Vancouver, I had to get used to tipping for almost every service, from dining out to getting a haircut, and the expected tip percentage, usually between 15 to 25 or 20%, was quite surprising. And also, it felt awkward. It felt very awkward to calculate the extra amount of money to leave after each service, and then I was always worried about tipping too little or too much. Those kind of things aside, so to clarify, one of the things that I still find incredibly fascinating about the aspect of Vancouver is the multiculturalism. No doubt you can be exposed to tons of people from different backgrounds. Honestly, I love living in a world where there are so many different languages and tons of ways to say things. People in Vancouver are speaking like from Spanish to English and Korean, Japanese, Chinese, and in Hindi, and also there are so many languages I've unheard of course. For me, it's very stimulating to see or hear different sounds or different languages. I think I have to appreciate them so much. Simply put, studying English in Vancouver is just more than learning a language. So if you ever going there and studying English in Vancouver, you should do it. It's very worth it. But you wouldn't go to a foreign country without basic understanding of a language, right? So if you're trying to go there with absolutely zero understanding of English, it can be huge waste of your time. I think you should study English for a bit beforehand. Besides, I'm pretty sure that there's tons of hurdles to overcome, such as making a friend and cost of living issues, and there's tons of problems to overcome. But it's about exploring different cultures, meeting different people, and finding great opportunities around the world. Living in Vancouver and studying English in Vancouver, or studying going to the college in Vancouver, opens up so many doors for you. And if you're thinking about studying English, or learning something specific in English, I highly recommend taking COV visa. It's called Cooperative Education Program. It allows for you to get tons of experience you yourself never forget. I'm saying without that, I've never immersed myself in Canada, I would never have created the life that I have now. Alright, now thanks for watching my first videos. I truly appreciate you guys. And don't forget to follow my social media accounts for my updates. See you next time. Take care.